Researcher Dr. Richard Meyer of UC Santa Barbara is the father of the cognitive theory of multimedia learning. If we apply the principles of his theory, we can design microvideos that meet the cognitive functioning needs of our students and support learning transfer and mission success. Dr. Meyer explains that there are three primary assumptions about learning that one must consider relative to his theory. First, we must agree that information is received through two channels, auditory and visual. Second, we should understand that these channels have a limited capacity to process incoming data. Finally, we understand that all learning requires cognitive processing that associates new information with existing knowledge. This theory requires that you consider the cognitive processes associated with learning. Connie Malamed of eLearning Coach explained that the learner coordinates and monitors these 5 processes in working memory. 1. Selects relevant words from a multimedia message. 2. Selects relevant visuals from a multimedia message. 3. Builds connections among certain words to create a coherent verbal model. 4. Builds connections among certain images to create a coherent pictorial model. And 5. Integrates the verbal and pictorial models with each other and with prior knowledge. To support the brain as it goes through these cognitive processes while engaging with multimedia learning, Dr. Richard Meyer outlined 12 principles, each designed to reduce the cognitive load and facilitate the learning and retention process. To help illustrate these principles in action, let's check out a few images. The multimedia principle is the first and most basic principle and states that people learn better from a combination of text and relevant images than from text alone. For this and the remaining 11 principles, let's pretend we're presenting on a new species of bluebird. To adhere to the multimedia principle, we'll want to add an image of the bluebird. The signaling principle is all about making it obvious to the learner what exactly they should be paying attention to. This could mean highlighting the most relevant text, using attention-getting animation, or using graphics that call out the important details, such as this arrow here that focuses the viewer in on the bluebird. The redundancy principle states that there is no need to provide narration and text along with your graphics. In this case, we can simply speak to the fact that this rare blue bird gets its unique color from the raspberry slushies that are its primary food source. There's no need to include the text as well. The spatial contiguity principle advises that linked graphics and text should be placed near to one another rather than apart. When the words and graphics are placed together, the brain is better able to make connections. Just as the brain needs the text and the graphics to be placed near to one another, it also needs the narration and the images to occur at the same time. So we wouldn't want to talk about our bluebird and his favorite raspberry slushie well before showing their images on the screen. The segmenting principle has less to do with the graphics, text, and narration, but more to do with the student's ability to segment or chunk the information so that they can view it and understand it at their own pace. That's the great thing about videos like this one having play and pause buttons. You can control how much you listen to and how quickly. The pre-training principle tells us that students learn better if they've been exposed to the concepts and terminology in advance. So, to make sure our learners get the most out of this presentation about our bluebird, it would be helpful for them to understand what the color blue looks like, what the common features of a bird are, and what the flavor of raspberry is. The modality principle simply explains that humans learn much better from images and spoken words than images with text. The coherence principle is all about cutting out the extras and only leaving what is absolutely necessary for your viewers. This allows the brain to focus on what is important without having to weed it out. For our slide, we'd just leave the bluebird in the raspberry slushie and say, the bluebird gets its color from its primary food source, raspberry slushies. The personalization principle reminds us that humans are social creatures and learn much more from common spoken language than complex phrases or terminology. Additionally, using the first person helps to connect your viewer to the content you are presenting. For this presentation, we might say, we know now that the incredible bluebird developed its striking color from a food that many of us enjoy, the blue raspberry slushie. The voice principle focuses on the actual voice of the spoken narration. If I sounded like a robot, you wouldn't get as much out of this presentation as you do hearing my natural voice. Humans require human connection to learn. Finally, the image principle dispels the myth that virtual content delivery requires students to be able to see a talking head in their video. Cognitively speaking, people learn much more from connecting images and graphics with spoken narration than they do by focusing on the image of a person talking to a camera. By applying Dr. Meyer's 12 principles, we can design multimedia learning objects that meet the cognitive needs of our students and therefore enhance and reinforce learning, leading to learning transfer.